Of course. Here's section 1, 500 words, of the story script, written in a direct, emotionally grounded style, without fluff or repeated ideas. They say second marriages come with lessons learned. I believed that. I believed in David, a man who brought stability, kindness, and a quiet sort of love that felt safe. We built a life together, just the two of us for years. But things changed when his son, Liam, moved in. Liam was polite, distant, and sharp. He had just graduated college, uncertain about what came next. David offered him our guest room without asking me. I didn't mind, not really. Family was family. At first, we barely spoke beyond small talk. He kept to himself, mostly in his room with headphones on, laptop glowing well past midnight. Over time, the silences shortened. It started with casual things, him offering to help with dishes, carrying groceries in from the car. One night, while David was out late, Liam and I ended up watching a documentary together. He surprised me by how articulate he was, how thoughtful. We talked more that night than we had in weeks. It's strange how quickly the energy shifts when someone starts noticing you. David had stopped. Not out of malice, just distraction. His work was demanding. Long days, late dinners, sometimes entire weekends out of town. Liam, on the other hand, was there. Watching, listening. He noticed things. A new haircut. A different perfume. The way I sighed without realizing. When he said, "That color really suits you," I laughed it off. But I felt it. I felt myself blush. There's a moment, small, forgettable to anyone else, when I knew something had tilted. I had been in the kitchen, leaning over to pull something from the oven. I turned and caught Liam staring. Not in a crude way. Just lingering. Our eyes met. We both looked away too quickly. My heart beat faster than it should have. I told myself it was nothing. A silly spark in a tired woman's mind. But I started being aware of him. Aware of how he moved around me. Aware of how his voice deepened when he asked about my day. Aware of how my body reacted when his hand brushed mine while passing a plate. Still, there was no boundary crossed. Not then. Just glances, moments, invisible threads pulling tighter. I found myself waiting to hear his footsteps in the morning, listening for the sound of his door opening. He always said good morning in a low, soft tone. I started wearing a little makeup again, just enough to feel seen. Not for David. Not anymore. One night, as I cleared the dinner table, I heard Liam playing piano softly in the living room. I leaned on the doorframe and just watched. He looked up, smiled. "You okay?" he asked. I nodded, too long. That smile stayed with me all night. There was a line between us, clear, defined, immovable. Or so I thought. Until I realized we were both standing on it. And neither of us was stepping back. Of course. Here's section 2, 500 words, of the story, continuing directly and concisely from section 1, with no repetition or unnecessary build-up. David started traveling more. Conferences, client meetings, overnight stays. I stopped asking questions after a while. I knew where he was technically, but emotionally, it felt like he'd already left. The silence in the house became louder, except when Liam was around. He filled the space his father didn't. I began to look forward to our late-night conversations. We talk about everything: books, politics, art, childhood memories. He was curious, attentive, unfiltered. He asked questions David never did. He remembered my answers. One night he said, "I never really got to know you before. You're different than I thought." I didn't ask what he meant. I already knew. There was a closeness forming that had nothing to do with family. I knew it was wrong, but I didn't stop it. I leaned into it. "So, did he?" Small things. His hand brushing my shoulder and not pulling away. The way he'd look at me like he was trying to memorize something. The way I stopped correcting him when he called me beautiful. One evening, I broke down. I'd burned dinner, dropped a glass, and started crying over nothing. Liam didn't ask why. He just sat beside me and let me cry. Then he said softly, "You don't deserve to feel like this. Someone should take care of you." I looked at him. Too long. He didn't move. I didn't either. When he leaned in, I didn't stop him. The kiss was brief, hesitant, but it shattered everything. We pulled away instantly, breathless and terrified. "We can't," I whispered. He nodded. But the damage was done. Something irreversible had begun. After that night, we avoided each other for a few days. Pretended to be busy. But avoidance turned into tension. We both felt it. And when David left again the following week, it happened. I didn't plan it. I didn't even recognize myself. I opened the wine. We sat too close. He touched my hand. I didn't move away. It escalated. Words unspoken, boundaries ignored, choices made in silence. What happened between us wasn't about lust. It was need, desperation, a craving for connection that had been starved for too long. Afterward, we didn't speak. Not about what it meant, not about how we felt. Just silence. A heavy, shameful silence. Yet we kept coming back to it. Not often. Not carelessly. But enough. Enough to know we were past the point of pretending. I'd lie in bed next to David, his back turned to me, his breathing slow and steady. I'd wonder what kind of person I had become. And then I'd wonder if he even noticed anything at all. Liam and I stopped smiling when we crossed paths. We avoided eye contact. But the weight between us stayed thick in the air. It followed me into every room, every hour. What we'd done wasn't just a mistake. It was a secret too big to bury and too dangerous to carry. Of course. Here's section 3, 500 words, of the story, continuing without repetition and maintaining the same focused, emotionally honest tone. We didn't talk about it. That was the unspoken rule. We lived under the same roof, carried on like nothing had happened, but everything had changed. I avoided mirrors. He avoided being home. We stopped watching movies. We stopped talking altogether, unless it was necessary. And even then, our words came out clipped, careful, rehearsed. I thought I could compartmentalize it. Put it in a box, lock it, pretend it didn't exist. But guilt has its own rhythm. It shows up when you least expect it. Folding laundry, making coffee, hearing David say, "Love you," as he walked out the door. It didn't feel like love anymore. It felt like a lie I was too much of a coward to correct. Liam started coming home later. Sometimes not at all. I told myself he was distancing, pulling away, trying to forget. Maybe he was. Or maybe he regretted it more than I did. I wouldn't blame him. What we had done wasn't romantic. It wasn't sweet or justified. It was selfish. And dangerous. David noticed the tension, but not the truth. He asked if something had happened between Liam and me. A fight, maybe. I told him Liam was just adjusting, figuring out his path. That seemed to satisfy him. But only for a while. Then came the night I left my phone on the counter unlocked. A message popped up. Just one word from Liam. "Sorry." David picked it up before I did. He asked, "Sorry for what?" I froze. I lied. Said we'd argued about something petty. He stared at me a moment longer than usual, then walked away. That was the first time I thought I might be found out. I started imagining worst-case scenarios. David confronting me. Liam breaking down and confessing everything. It made me sick. But what terrified me more was how a part of me still missed Liam. Even in the guilt, even in the mess, there was a hollow space that only he had touched. It made everything worse. One morning, I found a note in the kitchen. It was from Liam. Short. Cold. "I'm moving out. This isn't right. I need distance." No goodbye, no explanation. Just absence. I felt a strange mix of relief and devastation. I didn't chase him. I didn't text. I didn't call. What would I even say? David noticed the silence, but said nothing. For a while, the house felt like a stranger's. I'd pass by Liam's empty room and feel like something haunted lived there. A version of myself I didn't recognize. At night, I'd lie awake, staring at the ceiling, waiting for the weight to lift. It didn't. Shame is patient. It doesn't scream. It whispers. It asks questions you can't answer. I had thought I was in control, that I could handle the fallout quietly, cleanly. but secrets rot from the inside. And mine had already started to spread. Of course. Here's section 4, 500 words, concluding the story with emotional resolution, maintaining the same concise and direct tone. David found out 3 weeks after Liam left. I came home to silence, not the usual kind. There was an envelope on the table. Inside were printed screenshots, messages I thought I had deleted. Not explicit, just enough. My name, Liam's, timestamps, words like "I miss you" and "we shouldn't have." The damage was undeniable. He didn't wait for an explanation. His bags were already packed. When I walked into the room, he looked at me like I was a stranger. "I knew something was off," he said, "but I never thought it was this." I opened my mouth, but nothing came. No excuse would have mattered. Not the loneliness. Not the silence. Not the neglect. I betrayed him. And worse, I betrayed his trust as a father. He left that night. No yelling. No slammed doors. Just the sound of a life ending quietly. I didn't hear from Liam after that. Not a word. I don't know if David called him. I don't know if they spoke. I stopped wondering. Some silences are earned. I didn't just cross a boundary. I demolished it. I wrecked 2 people I cared about and lost myself in the process. Days passed in routine, but nothing felt normal. I still made coffee. Still folded laundry. But it all felt like someone else's life. I walked through it empty. I didn't cry much. I had no right to. This wasn't a tragedy that happened to me. It was one I caused. Friends noticed I was alone again. I told them David and I were taking space. I avoided deeper questions. What would I say? That I ruined my marriage for a moment I couldn't explain? That I crossed a line so unnatural, so irreversible. Even I couldn't look at myself the same. There was no happy ending. No secret love affair that turned into something deeper. Just silence, guilt, regret, and the long, slow work of facing myself. Months later, I saw David from across a grocery store aisle. He didn't look at me, didn't even flinch, just walked past. I didn't follow. I respected the distance. I had forfeited the right to close it. Sometimes at night, I replay the early days. Before the mistake. Before the temptation. When I was still someone I respected. I wonder how far back I'd have to go to stop everything from unraveling. But there's no way to undo a betrayal. Only to live with it. I used to think I was invisible. That no one really saw me. But now I know being seen isn't the same as being valued. I confused attention for affection. I mistook loneliness for permission. I live alone now. Quietly. Honestly. No more secrets. No more illusions. Some mistakes fade. Some become scars. And some stay sharp because they were never accidents. They were choices. Deliberate. Final. And I made mine.